Hello, good evening, Matilde. Thanks for waiting. I was having some trouble by joining and preparing these details for the new course, but I think I have everything ready. So how are you? Is everything okay?
I'm okay. Okay, thank you.
That's great to know. So let's please start by joining again the new platforms. Well, actually the same platforms, but the new courses for each platform. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to join the new course on Google Classroom and the link.
Okay.
Okay, so you have the link in the chat. You can join the platform. Now, I don't know if you were able to obtain or management was able to send the new username. Matilde, not yet?
Honestly, I completely forgot. But I'll do it tomorrow. I write them tomorrow.
Okay, no worries. Yes, I also mentioned that, but they are the ones that have to give you that. All right, and they have
Yeah.
to give you that just to you. All right, I don't have to have access to that information. So again, I'm just going to remind them one more time, but they should be able to find them as soon as you tell them they have that ready. So you tell them, and they are going to send that information. Please let me know when you do it. Well, we have classes tomorrow, so I'm going to start
Yeah.
assigning everything tomorrow, right?
Okay.
But we have to start our first lessons today. The first ones are going to be very simple, so it's just going to see that everything is clear. We continue working in our essay, right? We're starting one essay. We're going to continue working on that. But again, to work on Pearson, I really need you to be there. Why? Because if you're not there, I cannot assign the first unit. Okay, so then I'm going to do that tomorrow. And that's it. All right, so let's leave Pearson aside until we get everything tomorrow. Okay, so now on Google Classroom, you know how this works, right? You have the presentations of Classwork, sorry. You have the new file that it's going to be this one over here. So as I'm opening the new presentation, please, Matilde, try to go to the previous course on Google Classroom and try to copy the introduction of your essay and paste it over here, please, in this new file, so that we have
Okay.
that ready.
Okay, but
Yes.
for some reason it's empty. I mean, I cannot see anything in the classroom you sent me.
Yeah, that one, but that's the new course, right? It has
Yeah,
to be
that's
empty.
the new course. So, okay, so there's. Oh, I
Yes,
just go to the previous one and we will use that one.
yes, please. No, you only go there to copy and paste the introduction that you have for your essay. Just that information. All
Okay.
right? Copy the introduction that you wrote yesterday and you paste it in this new file so that we continue working on that one in this new course.
Oh, okay. Okay.
All right, good. As you're doing that, I'm going to be preparing the presentation.
So I copied the example that we were working last class,
Yes,
right?
exactly. Just the introduction that you were able to write. It was about
Okay.
um, topic. Yes, but that introduction, please.
Okay.
Sleep deprivation, it was. Yes,
Yeah.
sleeping habits. Good. Great. So that's there because today we're going to continue working on that. Again, why? Because the first topics that we have for A10, as this is a new product, they are trying to make you review and remember everything that you covered before. It means in the previous courses. But as we've been working, all right, with this, we don't need to remember. So this is just going to be to check if everything is clear. If it is, we're going to try to cover two short presentations like that. Then we go to our essay, all right, to continue with that. So you have here, let me ask you again, this is grammar, but I really need to see if everything is clear. So I'm going to be asking tense by tense and try to tell me what's the characteristic of using that tense in English, according to what you remember. All right, first, only the simple present tense. When do you use this type of tense in English? And you can give me just one example.
Well, it's related about the present itself. What am I doing in the moment? Or describing something, like I work. She reads. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah. She's there. Yeah.
yes, exactly. You can use the verb to be, you can use other verbs to describe reality, right? To mention, to give general descriptions, to talk about routines, habits. So good. Now, what is then the usage of present continuous? Again, I know that most of this can be obvious, but it's to be sure that this is clear to continue working. Then the present continuous is that if the simple present is to give these general descriptions, to talk about facts, habits, routines, when do we use then the present continuous?
Something that it's developing in the moment. Like I'm having classes. I'm writing. I'm taking notes.
Correct. And we can also use it for very short or temporary periods of time, right? For example, when you say, right, I'm learning English this month or this semester, it's also valid, right? When it's temporary. Good. The simple past. What is the characteristic of the simple past?
Something that happened in the past and it's also finished. Like I worked until 8 p.m. or I traveled 2 days ago. Yeah, that happened in the past and it's finished.
Perfect, right? So we know when it is also specific as you explain on your example. So that's great. What about the past continuous? We just took a look at that very briefly. What is the past continuous for?
Yeah. Sorry, my laptop got crazy. When something's developing in the, I mean, it happened in the past, something that was developing in the past, and it could be used when I'm narrating something. So I could say I when I was walking by the street, I saw a woman, a strange woman, and yeah, I could go on with the story, but it happened in the past. But I'm trying to narrate something.
Okay, thank you. Yes, that's correct. So we're good so far, right? It's great. Now we're going to work these two together. The simple future that is will and future would be going to. What what's the difference between those two? When do you use will? When do you use be going to? According to the rules for grammar. What do you remember about them?
Hmm. If I'm not mistaken, I think be going to is for shorter period of time. Maybe I'm mixing them, but be going to like in a shorter period. I'm going to, uh, yeah, I'm going to ask for some vacation. I mean, it's going to be one of these days, so it's a shorter period of time, but I'm not completely sure.
All right, that one to give you some elements. Yes, that makes sense because for one of the purposes that we have for be going to It's actually for something that is going to happen very soon, because you have to, I'm going to use that word, so you give the other one, you have to plan something, right? But also, if you analyze, it can be actually, it doesn't matter how long or how distant that future is. If you have a plan, it has to be with be going to, right? For example, if you have your tickets, and sometimes even you can buy tickets, I think some people do that, right? They buy tickets for many months, right, in the future, or even a year, because they found that the prices were very low. So that's even a plan, right? So we can also use be going to in that situation, just because everything is planned with many months or even a year or even more sometimes, right? Before that action. So yes, you're in a certain part, right? But the main idea then over there is going to be the idea of planning, right? Be going to is for a future that is planned, something that is for sure going to happen because you already agreed, right, with someone to do something in a specific. It can be a professional appointment or any type of event that you might have, right? So that's one would be going to then. Then let's try to divide this into two categories, and you tell me which one is better. If we talk about predictions, we have two possibilities. We can say predictions without evidence and predictions with evidence. Which one we
Right.
use for each case?
Yeah, I remember we discussed about that. Um, because I remember it was different. For example, if like the weather, um, what's the word? When the weather prediction, it's like that's with evidence, right? So
Yes, correct. If you have something that shows you a type of information that is making you have a conclusion about the future, then that's going to be a type of evidence. So which one do you feel or do you remember? Again, you can take a shot over there. Will or be going to? Which one do you feel that it goes there for prediction or with evidence?
hmm, I think it's real, but yeah, I'm trying to think of some examples. Hmm. But tomorrow is it will rain. It is going to rain. I think it's real.
All right, we can do this logic. Actually, it can be confusing because of the following. Remember that in most cases, all right, actually in the two most important cases, will feels weaker than be going to. All right, in the two most important cases that are predictions, that's one. And remember, the other one is decisions. One decision is related to plans with be going to, and the other one is decision that you just make at the moment of speaking, right? So it's like improvised. So if you remember, will feels a little bit weak because will is for predictions without evidence, and when you decide something at the moment of speaking, right? That's why will feels like, okay, yes, yes, I'll go, right? I'll go, right? Okay,
Okay.
that's what I will do in the future, even though it's not a plan, but I'm telling you that I will go. That's why also we say that that will is for what? For promises, right? That's why you sometimes you say something at the moment, you say, yes, I'll do it, I'll promise. But it's not a plan, right? You don't know perhaps when you are going to do it, but you promise that, right? It's the idea that you have about that. Okay, so will is a little bit more about ideas, promises, decisions made at the moment of speaking, and predictions without evidence, because that's based on your opinion, right, or your beliefs. But be going to feels stronger. Why? Because besides being used for plans, right, as we've said before, because you have an appointment with your dentist or any type of professional, but you also have predictions with evidence, right? You can say, as you were saying, right, you see the weather forecast, for example, right? And if you see the predictions over there, and they foresee or foretell that there will be some raining because of, I don't know, right, all those studies that they work on, then we can say that it is going to rain, right? But if we don't have all that, it will. All right. So again, we're remembering that just to have that for sure, and also because it can be useful when using these two types of future. All right. So let's remember that simple future and then be going to. I don't know if you have questions or comments about those two, please, Matilde, before going to the last two that we have.
No, I think it's okay. It's good to remember.
All right. What about then the present perfect? Let's first talk about only the present perfect, right? We call it the present perfect simple or just the present perfect. That is also called the indefinite past, right? Why? Why do we call it like that? What's the characteristic that it has?
Because it refers to something that, yeah, that it happened in the past. For example, I have studied in the university for 5 years. So I'm referring that, I mean, it did happen in the past, and I'm showing that that happened in a period of time in the past. Yeah.
Correct. And is it possible to ask the question when for the present perfect?
Like,
Any question with the word when? Is it possible to say when or to ask when it happened for the present perfect? What do you say if it's called the indefinite past?
I mean, I would say it's too specific. I mean, because I will have to answer in simple
Yes,
past.
correct. Yes, you're following the right logic. So if you follow that logic, you know that you cannot answer a question with when in the present perfect. To do it, you have to go to simple past, right? Because you cannot give a specific information with the present perfect. It will be incorrect, right? We got to see that if we say something like, I've gone to the party yesterday, in terms of grammar, that's incorrect, right? That is incorrect. So you have to change to the simple past again to say, I went to the party yesterday. And again, those are the little details. But remember, again, we're taking a look at them because in case you get to use any of these tenses, even for your essay, you need to consider these details, right? Imagine, for example, you're talking about an article and you say, and this article that has been published, all right, 5 days ago, then that's incorrect, right? We cannot say that. We say that was published. We have to use passive voice in simple past. We cannot use passive voice in the present perfect, right? We cannot say, and that decision has been made yesterday. That's also incorrect, right? We say that decision was made, not has been made. Again, little details that, again, here we're just practicing with basic and simple examples, but they can be very complex, and sometimes we don't realize when we're using them in a complex situation, and we forget these little rules. All right, but let's just take that into account. We cannot say specific time expressions in past when we use the present perfect, right? We have to use the simple past, even if it's active voice, passive voice, it doesn't matter, right? Anytime you want to be more specific, simple past. If you just want to mention that something happened and you don't want to say when or it's not important, then you can use the present perfect, right? And you can say, right, I'm saying this because an article related to that has been published. And that's it. If you don't say when, that would be okay. So that's it. Let's try to work then with this next logic, Matilde, that is the present perfect continuous. So what is the difference then between the present perfect and the present perfect continuous? Because they are very, very similar. In most cases, we can use them interchangeably. But what do you say is the characteristic that makes the continuous form different to the simple form?
Well, I would say that Mostly when we use present, the continuous form is to explain it. I mean, it's still happening now. Like my dogs have been barking for hours, so they're still doing it. So
Good, exactly. When you, it's not for sure, it's not 100% of the time, right? But in most of the cases, yes, there's very, very probable that there is going to be a connection between that past and the present, right? And even perhaps the future, right? We don't know if that action is still going to happen in the future. So yes, that's mainly the idea, and also the idea of that progression, and that we know that in between that progression, we can have other definite or specific actions that happened, right? Or that can happen even in the present. So yes, and we can add the last detail that we can see the results of that action sometimes, right? When we say, for example, it's been raining, it's because we see that that it's wet, and we know that it's been raining. Perhaps not now, but very, very recently, right? So that's it. I believe that with that, look, that's why this is a complete lesson in which we are supposed to take a look at all the formulas and the ways to write our thoughts and ideas in these tenses. But I know that we got this. Now, I want to ask you, is there a specific tense that you would like to practice a little bit more? You have also a chart here with all the tenses, all right, being compared side to side in affirmative, negative, and interrogative form. But once again, is there a specific tense that you would like to practice a little bit more in this moment? Or do you feel ready to go to the next part to check just one more short introduction to a presentation and continue working with the essay? You let me know, please, Matilde.
I think it's okay. It's clear, so we could move on. Yeah.
All right, good. Let's go then. All right. So the only ones that perhaps we need to practice a little bit, we're going to try to repeat that in the future, are going to be the future tenses and just a little bit about the present perfect, but I believe that everything is good. Now, the next one again is very simple if we get to understand the tenses. That's why first we review tenses. Then also Pearson is showing us tag questions, because tag questions is one of the best ways to practice the tenses, at least when we are learning. So let's open and we're going to see how we can connect these two. Okay, so tag questions. First, I want to see how much we remember about them. Then this presentation is just going to be, as in the previous one, some interaction, all right, we are going to have to be sure that this is clear, and then we are done. Now, just in general, Matilde, what do you remember about tag?
Well, when I'm trying to get a confirmation, like this, aren't aren't we this little end right next to a question? For example, my dogs are so annoying, aren't they? I'm trying to get the confirmation there.
Correct, good. You have that. Now, if I ask you then, what are the elements that we need then for a tag question? I mean, you can start from the punctuation mark. What is the punctuation mark that we have to use before that question? And what are the elements that we need every time we want to work tag questions? Also, you can tell me when it has to be affirmative, when it has to be negative. Does it have to be contracted or not every time? Can we use nouns or only pronouns? So what do you say? What do you remember about those specifics?
Um, okay, so well, first I would say that it has to be well, this negative and positive. So it has to be, if I'm saying the first sentence is affirmative, the the next part, it should be in the negative form. So my dogs are annoying, aren't they, or vice versa. It's important to check the tense. I mean, in which time am I referring to? So it should be the same. What else? Well, I refer to something, you know, the sentence, comma, the tag question, and the question mark. Yeah, I think I remember that. And yeah.
Yes, those are the most important
Right.
details. You're right. Always the opposite, right? Affirmative, negative, negative, affirmative, contractions. What you said is very important. We have to know what tense they are in to use the correct auxiliary, right? Sometimes the auxiliary is not there, it's not written. So we have to know what tense we are in to, right, make that decision. So good, yes. And always pronounce, right? If we have Peter or Mary, we change that to he or she, right? Because we don't use names on tag questions, just the pronouns. All right, so good. Now again, I'm just going to give you ideas in tenses, and you give me the tag question for those ideas. All right. For example, if I say they've been working a lot lately, they've been working a lot lately. What's the tag question for that one?
They've been working a lot lately.
Yes, they've been working a lot lately. Correct.
Haven't they?
Yes, good. If I say she has a great need to start today. She has a great need to start today.
She has a great need. Isn't she?
Okay, close. But remember, if we don't see the verb to be, we cannot use it. So as we're saying she has, what
Hasn't
tense are
she?
we in? Close. But remember, hasn't is only when has is auxiliary.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
in
right.
our
Yeah.
sentence, right? What could it be?
She has.
She has a great need to start today. Or you can say a big necessity. Or she has the urgency to start today.
Okay, doesn't she?
Yes, correct. So that's the trickiest one, right? Always have is very
Yeah.
tricky because it can be verb, it can be auxiliary, right? Just that one. Then here, if I say very similar, she's been all right, she's been there the whole night. She's been there the whole night.
She's been there the whole night. Isn't she?
Close, but if we analyze actually what's the contraction is, if we
She's.
think that is the
Oh,
verb
yeah, she has been. Hasn't she? Yeah, you're
exactly.
right.
It can be the verb to be, but it will be passive. And in this case, it cannot be passive just because of the elements, right, and how they interact, right? But we can say something similar. Perhaps if we say, all right, let me think of something that can be passive, but actually it's going to be a little bit different. So let's continue with a couple more, then we compare passive voice to that one. What about this is easy, right? They went to the event yesterday. They went to the event yesterday.
They went to the event yesterday. Weren't they?
Close, but if we say went, it's not where, right? If we don't see the verb to be, we
Oh,
cannot
yeah,
use it.
you're right.
What could it
So,
be? The auxiliary that we don't see. What is we have three auxiliaries that we don't see. Two are for the simple present and one is for the simple past.
Didn't.
Yes, didn't,
Yeah.
exactly, right? So
Yeah.
that rule, again, it can be very, very tricky. Mainly
Yeah.
I would say the three most difficult things to get in terms of the auxiliaries are simple present, simple past, and the usage of have as auxiliary or verb, right? Because it can be confusing due to the fact that we don't see the auxiliaries in simple present affirmative ideas and in simple past affirmative ideas, right? We don't see that. So we need to be ready to know immediately that it's always going to be do or does in present and it's always going to be did in past, unless we see the verb to be, right? Only if we see the verb to be is, are, am, or was, were, we can use those, right? If not, it is not going to be correct to use them. And have, because the reason, right, we just gave is that we have the verb have as a verb, but also as auxiliary verb. And that can be confusing sometimes. And so we have to be careful with that. In that case, with simple present using the verb have, with the present perfect because we have that auxiliary, and also just in case the past perfect because the past perfect also uses have, but in the past form of have, right? Had. We had, that's going to be past perfect, right? So just that. I wanted to verify that, Matilde. So let's take a look. We're not going to see the lesson because I believe that in most of the cases it is clear. We're just going to reinforce then this part with present perfect. Let's read all these examples, please.
Okay. You have traveled there before, haven't you? He hasn't read the book yet, has he? She has been studying for hours, hasn't she? They haven't been paying attention, have they?
Thank you very much. In all these cases, it's present perfect, right? Easy to identify because next to the auxiliary verb have, we always have one verb that is in the past participle, right? So traveled, read, been, and so on. Okay, so that's important. Now, we're not going to take a look at the steps. We're just going to remember also these rules, Matilde, that are related to what we were saying. If we see the verb to be, let's use the verb to be. If we don't, we cannot do it. So we need to think of possibilities. Just in the present and the past simple, we see these difficulties because again, they are not written over there. In the other cases, the auxiliary is always there, right? In future, the auxiliary is will. In future, we'd be going to, if you have the verb to be, the auxiliary is be as well, right? If you have present continuous, you have the verb to be, so the auxiliary is be. In past continuous, you have the verb to be in past, the auxiliary is be, right? But in the cases, again, of simple tenses, it can be a little bit tricky. So let's only read, please, that to remember, Matilde, simple tenses, just the second part.
The example.
Yes, the two examples, please.
Okay, she likes dancing, doesn't she? Does is the auxiliary for simple present with third person. You liked the food, didn't you? Did is auxiliary verb for simple past.
Okay, there you go. And let's also remember that we have these exceptions, right? When it's imperative, we use will because we don't have a way to say this in a tag question. With let's, the same. We cannot say here anything with let's because this is a verb. So the auxiliary we use is shall. And I am, as we cannot use am in negative that is contracted, we have to borrow, right? This conjugation that is are for I am. So aren't I, right? Those are the only exceptions. With that, I believe that we are ready to go to our short practice we're going to have. But I want to know if you have questions about this topic, Matilde, before going there.
No, I know it's okay.
Okay, good. So it means again that here in general, the only recommendation is to just to be careful with those tenses and the verb have. Just that. Good. So we are now good to go and to continue working with our essay that you have here. You have a great introduction. Remember, the only thing we are going to do now, then, Matilde, we're going to have now the time, is first, we're going to try to reformulate and to restate the thesis statement, as we said, try to do it in a different way without using we. We are going to start working on at least the first body paragraph, and if it's possible, the second one as well. Now, we don't have the elements here, but I really need you to try to remember some of them. I mean, the rules, you have them in the presentation, but I'm talking about the verbs that you use with infinitive and gerund, that you also have it in the previous presentation. So again, it's a recommendation, but it's not going to be a condition. Try to use some of those verbs that are related to infinitive gerund, all right, if it's possible. Try to use again in this or the one or two body paragraphs you're going to write at least two more phrasal verbs that you can remember, if it's possible again. All right, let's try to do it. It's not going to be a condition, rather just a recommendation to try to practice those. But what I want to practice with you now, most importantly, is to remember the structure. Now, let me know, please, or actually, let's go, please, Matilda, to the previous course, and let's open the presentation or the document with the template to work this essay. Let me know when you have that open, please.
Okay, I'm trying to open. Okay, I have the template.
Okay, great. So with that, and also if you feel that you need, you have the presentation with the punctuation right mark rules, so you can also use that presentation, plus the one with the transitional words. So with those elements, please, let's work only on the first body paragraph. We first check that when we finish the first one. If we don't have the time, we work on the second one. We have 6 steps, at least 6. Let's have 7 minutes. Let's try to see how much you are able to do in terms of just the first body paragraph in those 7 minutes. And that's it. If you have questions, let me know. We're going to see more or less how you're structuring your ideas. I know it's a short period of time because you perhaps need to also verify some. Yes, so I'm thinking also that you're not going to use or write a real source this time. You can make up something, all right, and write something yourself, but you need to use the correct punctuation marks and everything to show that as if you were using an external source, all right, from any article or so on, all right, because doing that is going to require us to use extra time. But I'd rather just to practice and to mock the essay as if we were using that. Okay, so with that said, let's have please, Matilde, 7 minutes to work on this first body paragraph. I don't know if you have questions about anything before starting.
Yeah, just to clarify, I fix this we part in the introduction and then I start with the first body paragraph.
Yes, correct. Just try to restate that part and you can go directly to the first body paragraph. That's correct.
Okay. Okay,
Good. So let's do it, please. I'm also going to use the timer this time, but you can start, all right? I'm going to look for the clock in the meantime.
Okay.
Okay, so just in case, the template is also on my screen and you're going to have the timer next to it. Okay, so I'm starting the timer officially. In 7 minutes, we check what we got.
Okay.
right? As you're finishing with those steps, please, Matilde, try to highlight the steps with different colors so that we are sure that we can identify those steps.
Okay.
Okay, we still have two more minutes at least. If you have the time, finish the details for the you're doing, and in the last 20 seconds, like that, start highlighting the steps that you believe that you have in that part of your paragraph. Okay, just what you can do.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so we have the 7 minutes. As you're working with the last details or doing some extra things, I'm going to read what we need for the paragraph. Okay, so on the first step, we are supposed to have the topic sentence. So it's advisable to start with transitional words of sequence, right? I mean, first of all, to start with, to begin with, to commence, and so on and so forth. So this is like the topic inside our general topic, right? Because we can have a major topic that is the topic of our essay, and we can have topic sentences that are related to that general topic that we got. So we have to introduce what this paragraph is going to be about. In the second, it says extra information optional. Additional sentence to expand on previous sentences. That's only if we need to extend or to expand anything else about the first ideas. Then the introduction of our evidence, right? According to this expert, according to that person, according to this article, according to someone that is, right, trustworthy. And you then introduce your introduction in quotation marks by using colon or commas. Then you have period inside the quotation marks. And the last two steps, the paraphrasing of that evidence that you are showing, right? It means that you say that in other words, or you just paraphrase or make clear how important that is. Finally, the conclusion for that paragraph, right? With transitional words again as therefore, thus, all in all, to give the idea of closing up that part of the essay and going to the next topic. So with that said, let's take a look again at what you got so that we can read. I'm going there with you. Give me a second, please. All right, good. Now, let's read, please, Matilde, and we are going to keep working on those details.
Okay. Well, to start with, sleep deprivation can have a negative impact on. It shouldn't be. And now I think it should be your. It's the mental health. Lack of sleep can lead to anxiety, mood swings, and difficulties in concentration. According to someone, when a person has bad sleeping habits, the brain is not able to function properly due to the lack of rest. This could have a negative impact on health, and as a consequence, this will affect their performance at work.
Thank you very much, Matilde. Now, let's see what we got. Again, in this case, we're going to pretend that we are using an expert's words. All right, and we're going to try to put that in quotation marks so that we have that step. And after we have those experts' words, we are going to try to paraphrase that. Okay, and again, this is just to be sure that we have all the steps and we have that structure there. And the next time we have that automatically. But let's start dividing this paragraph. So I believe that this is the topic, all right, sentence. We're going to mark it like that. That this is your extra idea complementing your topic sentence. Okay, can be. You tell
Yes.
me if it's going to be correct. All right.
Yeah.
Then this is the introduction. Only this is the introduction. So this is the third step, according to the BBC, to CNN, to this doctor, to this right professor, and so on and so forth. That is our introduction or introductory evidence. Now, let's decide here, Matilde. I know we're not using the exact words, but you have to decide something just all right for practicing with this structure. What part of these elements that you wrote are going to be the exact words of anybody's, of any expert? What do you say? When do we start with the quotation marks and when do we finish with that? Just to practice.
The brain is not able to function properly.
All right. So until that part, you say until here.
Yeah, it could be due to the lack of rest too. Like the brain is not able to function properly due to the lack of rest.
Okay. So then let's pretend that this is going to be part of those experts or that expert's words. All right. So we have when a person has bad sleeping habits or bad sleeping habits, sorry, the brain is not able to function properly. Good. This comma here is optional because as you're using due to the lack of, you don't need to use that comma, but it can be also possible to use it. All right. So it depends again. Perhaps in this case, it depends on the words you're using. So it will be then this the fourth step, right? The evidence that is being introduced. So let's have it like that. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4 steps so far. We are missing 2 more. One that has to be the interpretation, the paraphrasing, right? The explanation of these words. When a person has bad sleeping habits, the brain is not able to function properly due to the lack of rest, right? Now, the second part, you have this. This could have a negative impact on our health. Yes, I believe that that can also be part of your interpretation or explaining what this means or the consequences. As consequence, okay, here, it is good. As consequence works more like a connector that is a transitional word, and this has to start a new idea. So you have to use one thing over here. With and, if it starts a new idea, it can be with a semicolon, all right? And as consequence with this correction, or as a consequence, as it says, this. But you have two options. You can keep this and over there, but you're going to have, it's not incorrect, but you're going to miss the chance of using and later on in case you need it in order not to repeat it. The other option is just to have directly one transitional word or using another way to connect this as consequence. For example, the word so. Okay, so which one do you think can work better for you in this case, Matilde? Leaving it like that, adding another transitional word, using so. I'm saying just in case you need to use and later on in this same paragraph.
Yeah. I would say a transitional word.
Okay.
Yeah, like the example, like this means that.
All right, good. So let's actually we're going to have this. We're in the last minute. No, let's do it. In these minutes, let's spend 2 minutes, only 2 minutes, please, Matilde. Try to connect these last ideas and try to write a very short conclusion for the paragraph. Okay, that's what we're missing. Try to have then what is the interpretation or the paraphrasing of this, quoting that you have over there, and a short conclusion for your first body paragraph. Okay, let's do it, please, in 2 minutes, and we see how you're able to complete that. All right, so one more time, as you're finishing with those last details, I'm going to read those last two steps. So after we have the citation over there, we can say this means that, in other words, or the author tries to tell us that, and we unpack our evidence, right? We explain in our own words what it means and how it helps to prove our point. And of course, it's not always like that, but it has to follow that path. And finally, we have something like therefore, thus, all in all, something or a connector transitional word that tell us that the following idea is going to be the last part of this paragraph, right? And we are going to start a new one. So with that logic, I'm closing this, and I'm going with you now.
Okay.
All right, so here I am. Let's read, please, what we got.
The last part, right?
Yes, please. I have the last part. After the, you can read the citation as well to connect that idea with the unpacking of that evidence.
Okay. When a person has bad sleeping habits, the brain is not able to function properly due to the lack of rest. This means that people need to start being more careful with their sleeping habits if they want to have a productive, healthy, and happy life. Therefore, employers need to start paying attention to this issue if they want to have productive employees.
Thank you very much. Great. I think it's working very good. So we're going to try to divide the last two steps. So this means that people need to start right being more careful with their if they want to be productive. Now here we're only missing one punctuation mark, but this would be the next step. Let's mark it with that. Here, why? Because as we have productive, one, healthy, two, and happy, right? That's going to be the third element. That's why here we need a comma, right? The Oxford comma. Then the conclusion, therefore, employers need to start paying attention to this issue if they want to have productive employees. All right, there you go. And this would be the last step for that one. All right, so good. It means that that's one a paragraph, right? We're going to finish the class here, but tomorrow, after finishing our, well, we have to cover again one more lesson. Actually, we're going to try to cover two because they are again just reviewing something. We're going to go to our second paragraph. So try to think, please, what your second paragraph can talk about. Here you are specifically talking about the negative impact, right, on mental health. Now you need to mention something else to still support your idea of your thesis statement. But again, I believe we are following a great path. I don't know if you have any questions before finishing today, Matilda. Let me know, please.
I don't think so. It's okay.
All right, great. So let's finish, please. As always, I'm sending the poll for today, or you have the poll over there. Let's complete that, please. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you tomorrow. All right. Just a reminder, don't forget to contact management to join Pearson and start working on that one as well.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye bye. Have a good night.
Bye bye. Good night.